Welcome in for a very exciting episode here with us on SODFS. We appreciate everybody tuning in here with us this evening as we break down the NFL Week 6 main slate here on DraftKings. Please make sure you are subscribed to the Sons of Dynasty YouTube page. Click the bell so that you never miss a show with us. I am Dan. You can find me on Twitter at Dan Brown NFL. And here with me tonight is special guest and MME guru in the DFS circles, Darren Manser. You can find him on Twitter at BOO Jojo, as well as holding down the Fantasy Points Premium Discord. Welcome in, Darren. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Yeah, man, excited to talk some Week 6. I appreciate you having me on the show. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, man, it's been fun getting to chat up with you in the Fantasy Points Discord. I've been hanging out in there pretty regularly these last few weeks. A lot of great conversations happening there. Just bouncing plays back and forth off each other. I think as far as the Fantasy Points Premium Access goes, that Discord is one of the most valuable pieces there, and you're one of the main key cogs in it. So hat tip to you, my guy. I do want to take a minute, though, to mention that Sons of Dynasty has officially joined the Fantasy Points Media Group. Make sure you guys check out all of the great content that the Fantasy Points Premium Access has to offer. You can use promo code SUNS22 for 10% off your subscription today. And as I mentioned, there is a plethora of things that gets you access to, and from the articles to projections, ownership projections, which Darren here is actually one of the main key cogs in producing there for Fantasy Points each and every week. So definitely encourage anybody and everybody to go check out fantasypoints.com. Again, you can use promo code SUNS22 and get 10% off today. Darren, let's talk a little bit about some news and notes. Obviously, this is one of the first bye weeks that we have here in the NFL season. So no Detroit Lions, no Houston Texans, Raiders, or Tennessee Titans this week. So a couple of guys that we've been using these last few weeks obviously are not going to be in the fold. And when the bye weeks come, it condenses the games, it condenses ownership, it condenses the chalk plays. So that's just something that it changes up the puzzle a little bit, but that's all we're here to do each and every week is take a look at this week's version of our puzzle and try to put together the best pieces that we can. A couple of other notes I have here. Cincinnati has gone under the total in 10 straight games, including playoffs, and that's one shy of the longest streak in the last 35 seasons. Now, this week, the Bengals are at the Superdome there in New Orleans against the Saints. The total is sitting at 43 as of right now. So something to keep an eye on. Darren, I know that you are in on some Burrow and Jamar Chase stacks this week, so we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get down there. Lamar Jackson has a 12-0 record as a starting QB against NFC teams in his career. So Lamar Jackson is a guy that I think not enough people are talking about on this slate. It seems like most guys are gravitating towards that top tier game that everybody is, and that's that afternoon game there with the Chiefs and the Bills. So we're going to talk plenty about the pieces in that game as well. But Lamar Jackson is a guy that I feel like is kind of flying under the radar as far as top tier action goes. And I think he's got a shot here to put up some figures and maybe get a little bit lower on the ownership. Steelers figure to be shorthanded in the secondary this week against the Bucs. Again, Darren, I know that you're hot on Tom Brady stacks this week. Well, the news keeps coming out and it keeps getting better. This Steelers secondary is essentially beat up. Minkah Fitzpatrick, a guy that came back this past week, we thought was going to be available this week. He's actually been ruled out as of now, too. So, Sutton, Al Witherspoon, Levi Wallace, all these guys are unlikely to play. And we got Tom Brady coming in with, getting his at least top 2-tier receiving options back in the passing game. Both look to be healthy this week. I know that you like that matchup.
Yeah. See, you can use a lot of weapons with that. That's what it comes down to. And what I look for when I'm looking for stacking, like who has good comebacks. And, we'll get into the Josh Allen stuff soon enough. But to be honest with you, who the hell do you bring him back with? Kelsey's expensive. He's going to probably be chalky after the nuclear explosion last week. He's got like 8 different receivers. He's got 2 running backs, maybe sometimes 3. So just be conscious of your of who you can actually come back with. Brady, I love Godwin this week. He's healthy now. He logged a full practice today, and with those cornerbacks being out, just in the back end right there, I think Tom Brady's going to bring him apart. And for me, I just think that the Steelers are just so. Where's he at? Hold on, I'll show you. Let me just get my area yards right now for. Where are you? Where are you? Sorry. Looking for. Sorry, I got my thing at area yards here for a second. What's his name for Pittsburgh? Sorry, the receiver. I'm sorry, drawing a blank.
Pickens or Deontay?
Okay. Pickens. Yeah, Pickens. It's just too cheap. It's at 16 targets the last 2 weeks. Pickett's just picking on him, and he's got a super strong arm. If you get a chance to listen to Cosell and Hansen, they just talk extensively about how strong an arm he has. And we figure he's going to be playing catch up, and we love garbage time, and that's the perfect garbage time type player that I like to use in a comeback. Because I think Tampa's favored by what, 8.5? Did it change yet?
Let's see here.
Well, 8.5 last time I saw it.
Yeah, 8.5 is what I had as of this afternoon.
Yeah, it's 8.5, and then also with Pickens, if I bring it up here, you look at the value on the slate. He's the second best value on the slate according to fantasy points projections on here as far as price. I mean, $4,600. It's like, yeah, what else do you want?
Yeah, no, I think that's probably my preferred option as far as a bring back goes for that game. Just given the price, given the role, and given that upside that we know is there as well. But before we get too much further into that, let's talk about. All right, I kind of mentioned some of the popular games. Obviously, they're being in the afternoon. The number one game there with the Bills and the Chiefs over under 54. And I think the number two game and the only other game with a point total above 50, sitting at 50.5 as of right now, is the Cardinals at the Seahawks. Those are two games that I really like to attack, but I think the field is also likely to attack. So, Darren, I'm going to ask you, is it the Tampa Bay game that you feel like has more sneaky upside as far as a game that might be going a little bit under the radar compared to the other two games that I just mentioned? Or is there another game that you think might have some sneaky shootout appeal and a way to kind of get a little bit of leverage off of the field that we know is going to be gravitating towards that Bills and Chiefs game?
Yeah, last I saw Chase, and like I said, when I did the ownership today, he's just showing like 6% ownership. I mean, come on. And, I'm sure he's going to gain some more steam over the next couple of days, but it's the LSU connection with him and, chasing him. So there, I think him and Burrow, and then coming back with Kamara is just such a nice stack. And a lot of people will full stack. I don't think you have to full stack. In certain situations, you can. Higgins has got a bum ankle. He's supposed to play. I think he'll play more of a decoy role, in my opinion. So I like a Burrow, Chase, Hurst, Kamara, Burrow, Chase, Olaf, Kamara. That's sexy, and Olaf is still cheap. So that's one of the games where you can get a little bit different, just to And Burrow's pretty cheap. He hasn't done much, but they need to get off the slide, man. They play like crap. They haven't done shit. So it's like they need to start doing something. Yeah, Burrow's showing 3% ownership. I mean, really? I mean, that's just crazy. 3%, and then Chase is the latest, like I said, like 5. So that's. I think Brady's more. And Brady had a pretty good game last week. Based on his price too, and he's just showing, I think, around 9% ownership compared to Burrow's. So that's my preferred stack.
And I think when looking at it, those are the next two games that I have some interest in. Maybe, for a cash build, if I am building around that Bills Chiefs, I might have a one-off or a potentially a little mini correlated stack, if you will, between that Bucs Steelers game or the Bengals Saints game. Those I think are my next two favorite as well. But let's talk about some quarterbacks, and we will start all the way up at the top in Josh Allen. coming in at 8,200 against those Kansas City Chiefs. It's hard to get away from him any given week, but this week it does feel even a little bit tougher. He has historically dominated these high total games, averaging 31.3 DraftKings fantasy points per game in his 12 games over the past 3 seasons with a total of 52 points or higher. And he's managed to score 30 plus DraftKings points in 58% of those games. So as I mentioned, obviously he's going to be extremely popular. I think that he's a no-brainer in cash lineups. Sure, pay up for Josh Allen and figure the rest out. But when it comes to a GP build or multi-entries, if you are going to take Josh Allen along, there's got to be some way to gain leverage off of the field. I don't think that Josh Allen, Diggs, and Travis Kelce are going to set you apart from the field in any way. So I think that if you are going to look to take Josh Allen into these bigger tournaments, you're going to have to figure out a way to get really different. Because if you're going in and your top 4 or 5 guys have 125, 150 projected ownership or ownership across the board, I mean, you're toasting some of these large field tournaments with that. So I think he feels great cash, and maybe if I am going to do a tournament build, I'm going to have to, really try to pay close attention to those fantasy points ownership projections. And what I do like about these 2 games, though, being in the afternoon, Darren, is it allows you to pick some guys from those early games, and based off of the ownership projections on those, based off if those guys end up popping or not, lets me know, obviously if I have a couple of guys from the 1 o'clock games and they go well, and it turns out they were pretty low owned, and I kind of got to sneak in there on the slate, maybe I can feel a little bit more comfortable, maybe throwing a Josh Allen in there, but still not necessarily bringing a Diggs and a Kelce, but finding a way to bring some of those other ancillary pieces along with me. Or, maybe my first 2 pieces end up being super chalky in the 1 o'clock games. Now I know that Josh Allen's not on the board for me, and if I want to be able to set myself apart from the field, I'm going to have to go down to one of these lower priced options that's going to be hovering sub 5%.
Yeah. So like I said earlier, that you don't have to have the comebacks. Like Kansas City's kind of tough to have comebacks, right? Now, a couple of ways I've been kind of playing around with it this year and save some money and be different than the field is. So like this week, for example, you could play Allen, Knox, who's back, and don't even have a comeback. Just play this, hope that you're going to get his passing touchdowns, maybe even rushes a couple in. And then you got Knox, who's 3,200, I think.
Yeah, super cheap.
He's super cheap, and he's not going to be that owned because he's just coming off the injury list. And then do little mini stacks in the Arizona-Seattle game. That's what I'm looking at doing. And then Gabriel Davis. I mean, Kansas City's still hurt in the backfield. So Gabriel, one of my buddy Adam, actually, he really likes Gabby this week, and I'm like, man, I don't like chasing. Man, just seeing Kansas City just get destroyed by these big number 1 receivers. I mean, they've just been absolutely obliterated. Can't say that word. But you go back and look at who the number 1s have played. They've just been killed. So that's the ways to be different. You can do it the other way too. If you even want, like with Gino, you could do. No, we'll get to that game. But you see what I'm getting at. I like to do mini stacks and I think a lot of people are going to try and shove in Kansas City players. We don't need to.
Yeah.
Buffalo's defense isn't bad, man. They're not that bad.
They have a pretty good pricing. Their DST is one that I am considering in some of those GPP builds because they're we know that Buffalo has a great defense. Yes, they're going up against Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs, so that gives us pause. We're expecting fireworks, so we don't even think about the defenses. But there's a very real possibility where Pat Mahomes struggles, the Chiefs struggle, they can't get the run game going. They hunker down on Travis Kelce, take him out of the equation, and make Pat Mahomes beat the Bills without Travis Kelce. And we've seen that fire get put out before. So there's a realm where that happens. I do like Buffalo's DST this week.
Yeah, I like that too.
And what a great, like you mentioned, not feeling the need to bring a Kansas City back, that just bodes even more. So now you have the Josh Allen Buffalo stack, maybe like you mentioned, a Knox or a Shakir there to kind of set yourself a little bit different. Throw Buffalo defense in there and get out of that game. Like you mentioned, attack a couple of other games and not feel the need to bring the Chiefs along.
Yeah, it's a little annoying McKenzie's back this week. So
it is.
Yeah. So
like Crowder and McKenzie 2.0 again now with Shakir in the fold.
Yeah, I mean, look at everybody's. They got five pass catchers now. So it's like now you got Singletary who's catching passes also. So it's like, man, this high octane offense is just like, right. It's hard to get away from Allen. It's hard.
It is. So, but it's like it's almost not that hard to lock Allen in and not feel like you have to bring any of the options around. Just let Allen do what he does. Don't sweat about getting one of these 5 darts. Right. Get the top tier quarterback option and then find value elsewhere in the slate. Don't force it.
Well, here's the other way to be contrarian and be different, make a build different. Play Mahomes naked, come back with 2 bills. Come back Diggs and Knox. Come back with Diggs and Shakir, things of that sort. That's a sexy build because Mahomes runs a bit. He might have to do a little bit more on his own. So I have no issues playing running backs who run a little bit, pairing double. I do that a ton in college. Playing rushing quarterbacks and playing the pass catching back in the other team, things of that sort. That's one of my favorite things to do that nobody does. Not many people do that at all.
How about Kyler Murray? He's coming in at 7,300. This is the second best game on the slate, as we mentioned. The only other game with a point total above 50 points. And typically Murray does shine in these games with those point totals, averaging 25.8 DK fantasy points per game when the total of 49 or higher. And he's gone over 38 DK points in 19% of those games. Seattle's defense ranks 31st in PFF's team coverage grades, and we've seen them in a couple of shootout games already. The Cardinals defense ranks 32nd for the same metric, setting this game up essentially to pop offensively. Now, a lot of the field is going to gravitate towards, obviously, Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes. This game is going to be popular too. But like you mentioned, I think so much is going to gravitate towards that Bills game that even this game, while, yes, probably likely to be the second most popular, I think if you are potentially really the quarterback position in this game is what intrigues me, just to get leverage off of the other 2 guys that we've already talked about. Pat Mahomes coming in at 8K. I will mention that he does average 26.8 fantasy points per game versus the Bills in his career, and that is only bested by Josh Allen's 28.5 fantasy points per game versus the Chiefs. So both of these QBs historically have thrown for 270 plus yards in each of their last 3 meetings. We know that these guys both have the ability to really just break a slate wide open from the quarterback position, and both of them being right there in that same price range too, 8,200, 8,000. I do like Kyler Murray this week as a potential pivot option.
I'd like him more if he was rushing a little bit more. He's not rushing. He's 4 for 42, 12 for 26, 2 for 8, 5 for 28, and 5 for 29.
Well, what if I told you that they're rolling out a guy by the name of Eno Benjamin this week, and Kyler Murray might find himself in a position, unlike the earlier on in the year, where he might feel the need to use those legs that we've been waiting on, hit a couple of check downs, maybe extension of the run via the short passing game. I'm just painting a picture here for you and for everybody else that maybe there's a Kyler Murray upside that we see this week. Again, they're playing Seattle. Seattle has been showing us over and over again that they can't stop the run, they can't stop the pass, that they can't do much of anything. Yes, it's been hard to watch Kyler Murray these first few weeks. The first half versus the second half, it's the first half them just playing terrible, terrible, terrible. And then the second half, they're scrambling around, making plays. Yes, it's not pretty, but, that they are all of a sudden competitive in the second half. I feel like I had a stat there for the Cardinals' woes there in the first half, but we'll get back to it. I want to hear a little bit more though about Joe Burrow, 6,700. I love the price tag, and like you mentioned, I don't think there's going to be a ton of people on him this week.
Look what Geno did to him last week. is just, I mean, Gino just went crazy with Metcalf and Lockett last week against him. And now we got Joe Burrow going to the old Bayou. Him and Chase going to reunite. I'm sure they got some friends, family in town, and all their buddies from college, everything else. And like I said, they need to get off the snide really bad here. Lattimore's out, and looks like Higgins is gonna play, but I have a feeling he's gonna be a decoy. I think Burrow's is in a really good spot. Mixon's been running like crap, so I think they're gonna have to throw a little bit more. I just like Kamara so much with no Michael Thomas again. I think is Landry. I think Landry's out, right? I think Landry's out.
Yeah, I mean their whole wide receiving core is pretty banged up right now.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's out. He's out too. So it's like Kamara. I told somebody else earlier. Kamara might get 18 targets. So he's such a nice comeback in that game. I'm expecting Cincinnati win. I think that total's too low. I think that, in my opinion, I think it's too low. I think that total should be up to like 48, not 43. That's just me. That's what I'm thinking. I think it'll be a little bit more higher scoring than people think, and that's going to be different, right? And Joe Burrow is 3% owned. That's what it comes down to for me.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, I'm not really interested in T. Higgins this week. Hurst, I believe, even has a tough matchup. I heard a stat something earlier today that the Saints haven't allowed a touchdown to the tight end position since like week 8 of last season or something ridiculous like that. So I really do like Chase this week. And as you mentioned, him basically, we call him the Jamar Chase woes the past 3 or 4 weeks. Not getting anywhere near that elite production that you had to pay the price for him for this offseason. So I think this might be a get right spot for him. Maybe a little bit of that condensed target share is going to funnel his direction this week. So I really like that call, Joe Burrow and Chase stacks. I did build, I think I've got 3 or 4 lineups at this point, and that was one of my stacks.
And now the last 3 weeks, I've got it here for a comeback to Olave. Looks like he's going to play. He's 3rd in air yards in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, Andy Dalton.
Yeah,
Andy Dalton back under center. Yeah, so I do like that Saints team. Really, Kamara, Olave, and I don't know that I can buy back into Taysom. I think there'll be too many other people chasing as well. So I probably feel a lot more comfortable just with Kamara and Olave as far as bring back options. But even just those 4 right there, and that may have been what I settled on. It is Burrow, Chase, Olave, and Kamara, and then maybe just grabbing one piece from that Buffalo game, like a Devin Singletary, who I'm super high on this week. And I'll go ahead and talk about him right now because he's setting up for a great boom week here. He's coming off a combined 18.2 DK fantasy points over the past 2 weeks, 5.6 fantasy points this past week. And as I mentioned, that game current over under 54. Well, between Allen Diggs and Davis field exposure, I think that singles is going to be great leverage off of that play. So, when we think about Buffalo, we think about Kansas City. We really think about the passing attack, passing over expectation there for the Buffalo Bills, passing over expectation. I mean, the last couple of weeks, the Chiefs actually have seemed to try to lean a little bit more back on the run game, with their guys. But that's the problem with that side. They got like 3 or 4 guys that they're really working in. Singles seems to be getting the major work, at least when the game's been competitive. So, and this is a game that we do think is going to be competitive. Kansas City DST ranks 29th first running backs, and the last couple of weeks, they've been just giving it up through the air at the running back position. Josh Jacobs went 5 for 5 for 39 this past week, and the week before that when they saw Tampa, playoff Lenny, early season Lenny, whatever you want to call him, he went 7 for 7, 57-1, and then Rachaad White went 5 for 5 for 50. So they are basically just pass funnel to the running back position there in Kansas City. And if this game is staying alive, Devin Singletary's getting that work. I like him as a one-off in this game and potentially just getting out of there. Like I mentioned, potentially just Devin Singletary and that Bills DST. And that's the only exposure that I'm going to have to that game for that build. look to take the rest of my picks elsewhere in these large GPP tournament style builds.
Yeah, I'd like Singletary a little bit more if Knox and McKenzie was still out. But now that I have these extra weapons back, I'm not sure if he's going to get enough usage of $5,900. He's good leverage, but Zach Moss is still there. Allen's can still rush it in the end zone. I don't know what Singletary's ceiling is. With, like I said, with all those passing options that they have there. So I'm typically not this. Like I said, if Knox and McKenzie were out, I might like him a little bit more. But with all the other firepower back, I'd rather just play Josh Allen and look elsewhere.
All right, let's talk about a couple of other really the chalky running backs for the slate. It seems like through injuries and whatever else, a lot of value kind of has opened up there at the running back position this week. We've got Ramandre Stevenson coming in at $6K against Cleveland. Obviously in a smash spot. I think he's projected to be one of the most popular running backs on this slate. He logged every snap after Harris left this past game with an injury in week 5, and he saw the 10th most expected fantasy points of any running back in week 5. He is ranked as PFF's third highest greatest rusher and ranks third in yards after contact per attempt with 4.24, has the 5th best PFF receiving grade of 71.5. Again, I think that he is going to be very popular. But obviously just a great spot here for Stevenson. Cleveland's been giving it up on the ground, and Stevenson seems to be the one guy there that's left to really tote the rock there. Even when he was having to split work with Harris, Stevenson was generating more production, and then Harris goes down instantly. Stevenson does become that guy. Ramandre Stevenson season is here, so I love that.
Yeah, he's basically be the highest owned skill player this season. I'm pretty sure he's going to end up being around 37%. Browns are also without Clowney this week. So, and the Browns are basically last against rushing backs the last 3 weeks. So it's just, if you're going to eat the chalk, yep, they're dead last. Yeah, they're dead last against the rush the last 3 weeks, and now no Clowney. It's just a smash spot. I can't get away from it. I don't care. I'll get different somewhere else. But one thing I would tell listeners who they're building, I wouldn't. And if you get MRME or not, depending on your entries, I making sure I'm not playing Stevenson, Walker, and Eno in the same line. It's just going to look like everybody else.
That's what I was going to say. I think that is going to be a very popular approach this week. Just those guys, Ken Walker, Eno Benjamin, and now, let's talk Daryl Henderson opening up more value on this slate with the Cam Akers news coming out that he's stepping away from the team for personal reasons. Definitely this week he's out. It almost, implied that it could end up extending into potentially 2 weeks or longer. Who knows? Indefinitely. Who knows at this point? But instantly, Daryl Henderson coming in at 5,100 versus Carolina defense. It becomes a little bit more of a value. And one more running back kind of piece that we can move into the equation here when you're talking about this. So as I mentioned, there's a slew of these guys down here, and it's hard to pay up at running back this week, knowing when you have 5 or 6 of these guys down here sub 6K essentially. It's what can you do with these guys though that it's going to set you apart, and do you pick the right two? Because there's 3, 4, 5 of them, but maybe outside of Stevenson, we might see ownership kind of get spread out a little bit, and it is going to come down to, did you pick the right ones? Because they're not all going to come through. I think, we might see 2 or 3 of these guys here, come through, bring back value, but also while not giving you a ton of great leverage from the field. So that's something to think about. I think one of the greatest leverages that you can have this week is to stay away from all of these guys. Pay up at the running back position if possible, and look to spin down elsewhere, because running back position this week, I'll read through them again. You've got Ramandre Stevenson, Devin Singletary, Kenneth Walker, Daryl Henderson, and Eno Benjamin. Those 5 guys are are booked out essentially to be the 5 most popular running backs on the slate. Now, you can only play 3. And again, I think that is going to be a popular approach this week. But in these large field GP tournaments, I think that you need to get away from that. Stick a wide receiver, stick a punt play there in that second flex option. Maybe bring one of these guys along, but maybe look to get up to a Saquon Barkley. Or maybe it's a Joe Mixon this week, or one of these other guys. I think that is going to be one of the greatest ways to get a little bit of leverage in some of these larger field tournaments because these running backs are going to be super popular. You're playing cash, yeah, pick your poison. Which one fits your build better? All 5 of these guys, I would recommend all 5 of them in a cash build. I just can't say that I'm going to recommend that you play them in these large million maker tournaments because you're not going to get what you're looking for.
Yeah, but going back to Henderson, I love pass catching backs, and he's a pass catching back. And last 3 weeks, Panthers are bottom 10 against running backs. Cooper Kupp's dealing with a little bit of injury. He's still Cooper Kupp. He's supposed to be fine, but he's still going to play. So maybe they may lean on Henderson a little bit more. And I actually like coming back with DJ Moore. DJ Moore's only 5,100, and the worst quarterback of all time is not playing this week. Not that that the backup is is much better, Philip, but I like that little mini stack right there. So going back to where there's these chalky running backs, pair them up with a good, talented person on the other back. Be different. So that's a way to be different with some of these chalky guys as far as that's concerned. And I think DJ Moore, he's only showing like 6% owned right now, and 5,100.
That feels high. That feels high.
Well, yeah, maybe it is high, but with a new coach, I think maybe they'll try and stick up a fight for their new coach and want to get going. And I'm sure DJ Moore's happy.
Well, I just want to go ahead and throw it out there that PJ Walker has a 15.1 career total QBR, which is the worst of any quarterback with 100+ attempts since 2020. So, obviously
better than Baker.
Yes, and that very well may be the case. So I do like the coaching carousel narrative. A lot of times that is a little something that can shake up. You see usage of guys that we've seen the last 4 or 5 weeks there in Carolina go completely out the window, and all of a sudden Christian McCaffrey's the workhorse back that we've been looking for the past 4 weeks. They're using him in the receiving game like we expected them to coming out of the gates. A lot of these things could happen. So I like that call. It's a good way to get different. Not many people are going to be on the Panthers outside of their DST that's all the way down there at the bottom at 2,400.
Yeah, I think they're like the highest. I think they're the highest owned right now.
I would imagine so, just because there's not a lot of good DST plays on this slate, and there's not a ton of great cheap options. So you just want to gravitate towards the bottom. Stafford has been taking sacks. He's been getting turnovers. They're expected to potentially be missing some guys this week. We got the coaching narrative, team stepping up. Obviously, I don't know what's going on with LA. They're in turmoil right now. Players are stepping away. Stafford's a fucking turnover machine, and they've just looked like complete dog shit through the last few weeks as far as what they're able to do offensively outside of Cooper Kupp, obviously, and Tyler Higbee getting a little bit of volume. But, I don't know what's going on with Sean McVay and those Rams. I feel like you might be losing a little bit of the stronghold there. Of
Stafford's not healthy, man. He's just not healthy.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
It's tough to watch.
Yeah. Yeah, he was great, so good last year, but he's not healthy. And they missed They missed Van Jefferson, and they missed what's his name too. I wonder if they're going to re-sign him. Come on, guy who
OBJ.
Yeah, OBJ.
Yeah, I feel like I saw some reports circling this week. He wants Michael Gallup money or something like that, and they're wanting to give him the short stick, and he doesn't want to touch it. So. I don't know. I think that they're going to continue to butt heads, but they need something to go down there because it seems like they are kind of falling apart. Let's talk. Let's see. We talked all running backs. Any other running backs that you want to bring up before we move into the wide receiver position there, Darren?
No, I think we pretty much got everything. We talked about Kamara. Like I said, I think he's just going to see just tons of volume. We didn't talk about Breece Hall. I mean, but he got a tough matchup on the road at Green Bay. Aaron Jones is another play, at home. against the Jets. It's pretty chilly up in Green Bay. They're going to maybe like run it a little bit more playing the Jets. So maybe he's a nice little bit of leverage play. And also Jeff Wilson's another one I like against Atlanta. He's not going to be as high owned as some of these chalky guys, but he's the goal line back there. And, he got a crap load of carries last week. He got 17 carries for 120. 23 fantasy points, and he's pretty cheap. He's 6,200. So I actually like him quite a bit. Try and get some leverage off some of these chalky guys.
Yeah, and my Atlanta Falcons, they're terrible at just about anything defensively. So they can't tackle very well. I think Wilson's definitely in for a great game. So
Falcons are bottom 10 last 3 weeks against running backs.
So I do want to take another minute to mention that, everybody should sign up at fantasypoints.com today. With Fantasy Points, you have access to the newest and best website in the industry at your fingertips all season long. It's got daily fantasy, NFL betting needs. You get access to articles, live streams, podcasts, cheat sheets, community chats, online tools, and more. It's all there available, and it's the only subscription that you will need this football season. Sign up for the Fantasy Points premium content using our promo code SUNS22. You'll get 10% off there at fantasypoints.com. Go check it out, because if you ride with Fantasy Points, you will score more in 2022 and beyond. Darren, let's talk wide receivers. We've talked about these Bengals. We've talked about Jamar Chase, 7,700. You got him projected, I think, for around 5% ownership this week. Anything else you want to talk about him as far as that game or anything else around Jamar Chase?
No, like I said, Lattimore being out, I think Higgins will be a little bit more of a decoy. They need to get Chase going. I like the homecoming narrative. Outside just the stats, he's due for a complete blow up monster game. Why not better than your home college stomping grounds?
And a couple other guys that we already talked about their teams, starting with Hollywood Brown, Cardinals. He's coming in at 7,200. So you got to pay up for him this week. But this from Scott Parrott's expected fantasy points report. Since week 2, on a per-game basis, Brown has averaged 130.3 air yards per game. That's the 4th most in the league. 12.5 targets per game, which is the most in the league. And 21.2 expected fantasy points per game, the 2nd most. And 20.9 fantasy points per game, the 4th most. Hollywood's been an absolute target hog in that offense with DeAndre Hopkins not being in the picture. Well, we don't have very much longer until that's not going to be the case anymore. This is a game we like to attack. I think, obviously, Hollywood Brown is set up again with a great matchup there against Seattle. He's set up for a double-digit target game in a game that I do like the quarterback here. So, if I'm going to bring Kyler out there, I do like bringing Hollywood with me this week.
Yeah, it's strange. It's like nobody wants to play Hollywood. It doesn't make any sense. 38 targets the last 3 weeks. It's like, good Lord, man! Like, what else do you want? And they playing against Seattle, I'm seeing 10% ownership. Yes, please.
It's Gabe Davis being down there $700 cheaper at 6,500 with what he did this past week. People just can't justify spending an extra $700 to get up to Hollywood Brown. That's a less sexy game that we're talking about here. I can get a part of the sexier game for $700 cheaper. So Gabe Davis, I'll admit it, I'm gravitating towards Gabe Davis. I like him this week a lot too. It is harder for me to say, you know what? No, I'm going to say not Gabe Davis and get up to Hollywood Brown for 700 more. That's a tough thing to do, but when we're talking GPP builds, when we're talking about getting a little bit different, those are the decisions that you have to make. Yeah, Gabe Davis feels great to click at 6,500, but you and a ton of other people feel that way as well. So I do like Hollywood Brown at 7,200, and anybody else in that price range right there above Gabe Davis is probably good leverage off the field.
Yeah, Tyreek's actually coming in at 6. So that's, 6%, 7,500. Tyreek Hill, was in the high 8s, 9s. It's going to have Skyler, the rookie quarterback, playing this week. So I can see maybe a little bit of a little dump off passes to get, maybe keep them out of trouble as far as that's concerned. So the Tyreek's obviously some leverage off that. That's pretty low ownership for Tyreek Hill.
I think I heard something. Maybe Kansas City is going to be without one of their DBs this week. They're going to be starting
Yeah.
two rookies, I believe, against this Buffalo Bills passing attack. So again, I know it's going to be popular, but I don't think that you should feel that you need to shy away from the likes of a Gabe Davis or Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen. They're in a smash spot this week against that KC defense. Over his last 8 games, Darren, Gabe Davis has played it, now when he's played at least 80% of snaps and has not been on the injury report. He has 33 receptions, 708 yards, and 11 touchdowns on 56 targets. That's averaging 21.3 fantasy points per game over that sample size. So this guy is explosive. He's paired up with a quarterback that knows how to utilize that element to the passing game, probably just as well as anybody else right now. I mean, the darts that Josh Allen is throwing down the field just regularly is it's him and Gabe Davis pair up so perfectly when it comes to explosive plays in the passing game. So I really do like that stack this week.
Yeah, I see. I mean, it's like 7% ownership. It's got to go up. I think there's not more hype over the next couple of days.
I was listening to a podcast earlier today, and then it was hovering right around that 5. When I heard that 5-6%, I said surely that's going to get inflated here between now and lock. But I love that. I thought he'd be at least closer to 10 or 12 this week, coming off of what we saw this past week and going into what we expect to be the fireworks game of the week.
Yeah, actually, I hate it's sometimes it feels like chasing. I think maybe that's what's keeping the ownership down. But you factor in they got the highest implied total on the slate. You factor in Kansas City, like you said, they're starting rookies on the back end. Throw in you got basically the best fantasy quarterback playing on the road in this game. It's like I wasn't as high on him earlier, but I'm leaning more and more because just like the chasing just seems chasing to me. But it's just like I'm looking at that ownership compared to Diggs at 18, and I'm seeing the savings of almost $2,000. It's like, dude, I can do so much with my stacks. And like you said, the stats you just threw off there is another way to be different. This single stack Allen and Gabby, and then do some mini stacks in the Arizona Seattle game.
Yep, love that call. Chris Godwin.
How about Allen, Gabe, and Knox? That's great. Just play those three. Don't force a comeback when you don't have to. Oh, I've got to have one on the other side. No, you don't. Just play those three. With mini stack some of the other games.
Got Chris Godwin, Tampa Bay Bucks there at Pitt, 6,100. He's been a guy that obviously was banged up a little bit. We've seen him kind of get slowly worked back into the game. I think he's back up to full speed, maybe 95% at this point. I like him this week. I like Evans this week. I know that you're in on Brady in that passing attack. What is Godwin and Evans coming in at as far as ownership projections go? I am curious on that.
Evans is showing around 8-ish, 8-9-ish as far as that goes. And then Godwin, let's see where Godwin's coming at. I think he's a little bit higher because he's a little bit cheaper. He's actually around 13. But I've always been a slot receiver type player, and I just love playing guys in the slot. Evans for me is one of those guys that can never get right in the right week, but Evans has just been absolutely crushing it this week. So, but I like a little bit of savings with playing him over Evans. But I like I said, I like this game quite a bit. Pittsburgh dead last against quarterbacks last 3 weeks, and second worst against wide receivers. So I like that stack. And I already said it. Talk about Pickens coming back. I think he's just stupid cheap.
Tyler Lockett, I know he's been battling a hamstring injury. I think he had flare up later in the week. So I really liked him earlier in the week here. He was obviously popping coming off of a 30-plus DK point outing this past week and coming back into week 6 with the same exact price point that we saw this past week at 5,600. Over the last 5 seasons, Tyler Lockett has averaged 18.4 DraftKings fantasy points per games in games with a total of 50 or higher, and he has gone over 40 DK points in 16% of those games. I think he was setting up to be super popular, but I think the injury designation and that hamstring injury, I mean, it's done it for me. I'm a little bit less hot on Tyler Lockett as of now. Just seeing that, maybe. I think it was Scott Bear that was talking about it in the Discord. When Lockett's banged up, he's just not been good. So even if he is out there, I don't know that I want to risk that with the injury. I think it might be a week. I don't know what Metcalf is coming in at, but I mean his peripheral numbers have been pretty outstanding. Yes, Lockett has been popping, but as far as the red zone targets, I think it's like 7-1. Yeah, Lockett's getting the long bombs in there, but DK Metcalf is 33% target share the last couple weeks in that offense with Geno there. So if the field is going to gravitate towards Lockett and Metcalf is kind of going overlooked, yeah, you don't get the price savings that you get with Lockett, which is what's bringing a lot of the field over to Lockett's side, I think, personally. But I find myself maybe even leaning towards Metcalf this week when I do attack this game. If I am, I mentioned Hollywood Brown potentially with Kyler Stacks, or we go Geno Metcalf with a Hollywood bringback, maybe Hurts instead. But Lockett is a guy that I was super intrigued with earlier on in the week, but I think throughout the week now, I find myself wanting to gravitate towards Metcalf a little bit. What about you, Darren? Where are you at on that?
I loved Metcalf all week long, and I'm really annoyed about this Lockett injury because I wanted him to be higher owned. So that's where I'm at. I'm showing as of right now, and I'll probably change Lockett around 23%. I see him as the highest owned receiver on the slate actually right now. So I was really hoping that little hammy thing came through. But supposedly he's better. He's fine. But we'll see. We'll see if he logs how much practice he logs anyway. I'm going to be way higher on Metcalf no matter what. Because I'm the lower owned guy, and I'm still annoyed he's showing 14%. But oh well, what can you do on that part of it? And like I said earlier, I mentioned earlier that Metcalf and Lockett last 3 weeks lead the league in air yards. 2 receivers on the same team leading the league in air yards. It's just insane. So, and that's why Geno's such a nice little quarterback to pair up.
Any other wide receivers that you want to highlight, touch base on, guys that might be popping to you versus an ownership perspective, guys that maybe you thought were going to come in a little bit higher that you were surprised by how low they were, or guys that you thought might be a good leverage play that it turns out they're coming in a little bit higher as far as projection, guys? Any guys on there at all that stand out to you?
So look, I already mentioned Tyreek as far as that goes on that part. Pittman's showing like 3%, but Jacksonville's actually been pretty good, and the Colts only have like a 21 implied. So I'm just looking at some of the lower owned guys down here. Thielen doesn't have that much upside as far as that goes. DJ Moore was one that I talked about. He's 5,100, so that's definitely one that I mentioned earlier that I do like a lot. Oh, and it's actually so Bateman's ruled out too. I'm seeing as of right now Duvernay 3% owned. So I really like that a lot. He looked great.
He did. They were featuring him. Dude, I was super surprised by that.
I love that. I mean,
it seemed like they kind of went away from it though in the second half when the first half came on and like they were featuring him like a wide receiver one in a Baltimore Ravens offense. I was surprised by that. This is a return guy that we've seen, kind of bring in some deep shots here and there. But I did like that, and I was a little intrigued with him this week as well. As soon as I saw that Bateman was going to indeed be out again, Duvernay is a guy that I am looking at in some GPP builds.
And Barkley's showing pretty. Like I said, Barkley's showing top like 6-7 ownership too. So Barkley, the perfect comeback with him is Duvernay. I like these little cheap mini stack with talented type players. So Duvernay is one, and we know about my Pickens love. I can't remember his name at the beginning of the show, but I loved him.
The love is there. The love is there, though.
Love is so much there.
All right, tight end position. Obviously, Travis Kelce is there and coming off of his performance this past week. Seems like a no-brainer there when you're talking about the tight end position. But I think in large field GPPs, the best thing you could do is try to find a way to get different. Getting away from Kelce at the tight end position is going to be a great way to. And I know it's going to feel gross, but there's so many people are going to gravitate because when you think about Pat Mahomes and any type of Pat Mahomes stack, any type of Kansas City bringback, the only one that really feels good that feels like, yeah, this is it. It's Travis Kelce. There's no, I mean, Juju's freaking toast. He looks bad. MVS, mild interest. Mecole Hardman, I'm not that interested in. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Pacheco, McKinnon, that's a messy situation. Yeah, so again, I think Kelce is far and away the one Kansas City option that most people, when they bring anybody along from Kansas City, that's going to be who they feel comfortable bringing along. And looking down through the tight ends, he's really the only. Yeah, Mark Andrews is on the slate, but again, that game just isn't popular, isn't feeling nearly as sexy as the one that we're talking about in this late afternoon game, but between the Chiefs and the Bills. So I think Travis Kelce is going to be super popular, 7,800, and I mean maybe that's a good price for him. It feels good for him, but you're going to have to pay up. I mean, but everything is telling you this is the game that you want to pay up for him. Maybe it was last game though. Maybe those 4 touchdowns, maybe variance is about to come back and bite him in a week where people think that he can't miss. So I think in large field GPPs, I'm going to essentially, one of the best things I'm going to be able to do is just to get away from Travis Kelce at the tight end position. That right there is going to allow me to, pay up and as I mentioned, maybe get to some of these upper price running backs that people aren't gravitating towards because there's so many of those cheap options. So by not having to pay $7,800 for Travis Kelce, boom, I can get a Saquon Barkley in there. I can get an Alvin Kamara in there and maybe a Jamar Chase or a Tyreek Hill there. These are the type of guys that by getting away from Kelce, I have access to now. And so I just, again, cash builds, sure. Lock Travis Kelce in, lock him in and Josh Allen, and then figure out the best value plays. Put them in as far as everything else goes. But large field GPP, I probably am going to get away from Kelce wherever I can.
Yeah, well, the thing with Kelce is, though, he's actually showing less than 10% owned. So he's 7,800. Will it end up like that? I don't know if he'll end up like that. But now we're just talking strategy, and let's see. Kelce actually. Yeah, I got him at like 5%. He's 7,800. Damn. He scored 4 touchdowns last week. So if people don't want to chase, another way to get different is play Allen, play Kelce, and play Gabe Davis. I mean, just, chase the points from last week because nobody doesn't look like most other people are doing it. And then, I can't believe he played chalky. He wasn't chalk. A lot of people won't do that. So that's something I don't think people are going to want to. They usually don't like playing up for tight ends, and Kelce is pretty expensive. Not that he's not worth it. He's still Kelce. But that might be, the people might be overthinking that. That's how my mind works, trying to get different build as far as that goes. But my favorite tight end on the slate is hands down as Ertz for Arizona.
As of right now, they have officially removed Tyler Lockett from the injury report, so he is coming in fully healthy. I think that is going to bode well for him. Getting back into that, potentially being the most highly owned wide receiver on this slate, allowing that DK Metcalf leverage that we spoke about a few minutes ago to come to fruition. So that is a good update there for us. I mean, it's a good update for everybody. People that really want to play Tyler Lockett and get him, potentially, because again, the pricing's great, the matchup's great, everything's great, but what also is great now is that we get the Metcalf leverage off of him and still get Lockett to be super popular. So love that. Zach Ertz is where we were going there at the tight end position. 4,900, obviously. Yes, there's a trend here. We're talking about either guys from this game or we're talking about guys from this game. Again, those are the 2 games point totals, implied totals, team implied totals. That's where the fireworks are telling us are going to be happening. I think that Zach Ertz is in a pretty good spot here. Again, Nook is not going to be back for another week here, so your kind of last chance here to have this condensed Arizona Cardinals passing attack between Zach Ertz, Hollywood Brown, and now Rondale Moore there mixing in on the slot. I do like him slightly this week there in the sub 5K range there at the wide receiver position there. But chasing this game environment, Arizona Cardinals, Seattle, if I'm not paying up for Kelsey, I do think Ertz makes a ton of sense, and you save about $3,000 on your build by doing so. He's now seen double-digit targets in 8 of his last 11 healthy games, and against tight ends, Seattle has given up 94.6 fantasy points this season. That's 31st in the league, so great volume, great matchup. Zach Ertz makes a ton of sense this week.
Yeah, the Seahawks, so the last 3 weeks, the Seahawks have allowed around 27 points a game to the tight end. The second team is the Titans at 13. They've allowed 13 more points to the tight end.
Unreal.
It's at 4,900 Ertz. I'm basically almost all in on Ertz this week. He actually doesn't show that much ownership too. So that's
where's it all going, Darren? Where's the field gravitating towards?
Dude, Higbee is showing 22%. Actually, Ertz has jumped up. I'm sorry. I apologize. He's up to 17. My bad.
Okay.
Yeah. Higbee's still 22. He's got a questionable tag. He's got a red mark. So we'll see. He's a $300 cheaper. So $300 might make a difference for somebody on the build. I'd have to play around some build some more. Hunter Hurst is actually coming in around 11% at 3,300. So, big game last week against his old team. So he's getting a little bit of leverage on that part too.
I think Steelers, Pat Freiermuth has been ruled out as he's still recovering from that concussion. So Gentry, I think, got banged up in the knee this past week. I think he is looking like he is going to play.
Yeah, he's going to play.
So he's definitely a punt option there at the tight end position if you're looking to get all the way down there. So DSTs, Darren, we already kind of talked about. There's not a ton of great ones out there. I think it's a good week. It's a good week to try to get pay up a little bit, not too much, or just get all the way down. Tell me who you like this week, Darren.
Jacksonville. Matt Ryan's on pace to have the most sacks in the history of the NFL. If anybody watched that game last week, against Denver, he was basically on his ass the entire game.
He's been on his ass the last 2 years.
I'm sorry?
I said he's been on his ass the last 2 years, that Matt Ryan. I'm a disgruntled Falcons fan. Forgive me.
I'm picking on your Jaguars. I'm picking on your Falcons today. Jaguars. Their defense has been really good actually this year, and so that's one that they're middling road ownership. There's nobody like popping. Ownership's usually typically spread out unless there's mispricing. Like the Cowboys last week, that was a complete mispricing on DraftKings. And as far as that, it's pretty spread out as far as ownership goes this week. Panthers,
I hated that the Cowboys chalk paid off last week, and it was like right at the beginning of the game.
Oh, you're dead. Yeah, you're dead.
Oh man, it's like because it was what the week before. It was a Cincinnati, or maybe it was 2 weeks before. It was one of the super chalk defenses just fell flat on its face, and I was like, all right, I gotta fade next time. Fucking, there's a defense that's super chalk. I'm gonna get away from it. And then fucking 2 minutes into the game, Cowboys DST scored a touchdown. I was like, no, you had to bring them. You fucking had to bring them.
Yeah, that sucked.
Oh, man. But, Darren, man, any other guys you want to talk about on this slate before we start to close it out here tonight, man?
No, I don't think so, man. I think we had a pretty good little conversation here today about, pretty much everything, and kind of laid the foundation of how I'm building this week. I'm just going to share that with you. I'm not sure if anybody watching the stream, I do have a video on YouTube. It's free to watch. You just go to Fantasy Points. It's the optimizer that we use, and I shared just a short video, a couple of my favorite stacks, some of the stacks we talked about on the Tonight Show. So if you haven't had a chance, check that out. I do a video every week, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be free for the whole year. Not 100% sure, but I've done pretty well with it on some of my picks and stuff. I was all over the Browns game last week. That game smashed, and Longino the week before. So yeah, I've been pretty, done pretty good with the little, different contrarian stacks as far as that's concerned. But yeah, I think we pretty much hit everybody else that I wanted to talk to. But yeah, leave it up to you.
Well, man, I really do appreciate you joining me here this evening, and hopefully we can maybe get a chance to get you back on here and do another week here further down the NFL season.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully my picks do good tonight. Sunday, you can have me back.
Yeah, no, I would love for that. So again, appreciate anybody and everybody who tuned in with us this evening, whether you're listening via podcast or YouTube or anywhere else, whatever your favorite podcast listening device may be. Maybe leave us a review. Let us know how we're doing. It helps us out a ton. So make sure you are subscribed to the SOD YouTube page. Click the bell. Want to take a minute to do a big thank you for Fantasy Points Media Group. It's been an absolute pleasure being a part of them and having access to everything that Fantasy Points has to offer. The great minds of Darren here and many of others there, all packaged into one subscription there for you. So highly recommend you check out fantasypoints.com. Again, you can use promo code SUNS22 for 10% off there on your subscription. Want to do a big shout out to brother Matt here behind the scenes, doing all the layer work, the production aspect here on SODFS each and every week. The show would not be here without him, so appreciate you, brother Matt. Check out ViridianGlobal.com. You can get all your fantasy football apparel needs, including SOD gear, fantasy points, paraphernalia, and anything and everything else fantasy football related that you could possibly need. ViridianGlobal.com is your one-stop shop there for that. Darren, anything else that you want to mention or plug before we get out of here?
No, just Fantasy Points aside, man. If you guys haven't signed up yet, Sunday morning, that's the Sunday morning Discord. You get in that Discord, there's so many great minds in there. Johnny is in there, and then Scott jumps in when he wakes up, and then you're in there, and I'm in there. Maybe asking questions, and it's one of the best chats. I've been in some pretty toxic ones in the past, but there's zero of that in there. Really super friendly, super helpful. There's no stupid questions, and it's popping on Sunday morning, man. It's a really good time. Everybody talking and changes and things of that sort. So that's one thing. That's one of the best benefits to signing up for Fantasy Points is getting that Discord premium chat. You can't just get in there if you're not a subscriber. But Dan's got the code, if he wants to read it back one more time to get that discount for the site.
Yeah, that's right. Head over to fantasypoints.com, pick your subscription package today, and use promo code SUNS22. You'll get 10% off right then and there. Appreciate each and every one of you guys for tuning in tonight. Until next time, I am Dan. He is Darren. Much love to everybody out there this evening.